when it comes to spending. My next guest has some ideas. Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan is chairman of the Republican Study Committee, the caucus of House Conservatives. How you doing, sir? And welcome here to America's Newsroom here. You write a piece that just came out this week on the 20th of January, where you said by the end of this decade, 9 years, if we continue the way we're going, our national debt won't be $14 trillion. It'll be $26 trillion. I mean, if that's the case, Greece is going to have a pretty good laugh, isn't it?
Well, Bill, you're exactly right. And Eric just gave you the numbers on the $14 trillion in national debt. But when you look at our debt to GDP ratios, our deficit to GDP ratios, we are quickly resembling those countries we've read about for the last year, Greece and Portugal and Spain and Ireland, those countries that are having huge financial problems. So the window of opportunity to begin to fix this problem is closing rapidly. And that's why we brought our spending reduction plan forward, which actually over the 10-year time period will save $2.5 trillion. We think it's a good first step. It just deals with discretionary spending. And we think it's a good first step, but we got to look at everything, defense and across the table, across the board.
You know, your district back in Ohio, I mean, you know how middle-class America has been hit by this. And you understand the angst and the anxiety that so many Americans have about what's happening in Washington. I want specifics and details. What would you cut?
Well, we have a list of 100 different things, from cutting the federal travel budget in half. You save $7 billion doing just that, to getting rid of Amtrak subsidies, high-speed rail, NPR. You go down the whole list. And while those are relatively small in the big picture, when you add them all up over time, it gets significant savings. But the biggest part of our savings is going back to 2006 spending levels and holding that in the out years. That's where you really accrue savings and begin to turn this ship around and put it on a sustainable fiscal path. And that's, to me, that's the key, because that's going to send a positive message to the market. And the one thing you have to deal with the numbers we're talking about is you have to have economic growth. Eric just talked about this, why you have to keep tax rates low, have regulation that's reasonable, not excessive, and get on a fiscal path, a spending path that's sustainable. That's when you get economic growth. It can ultimately deal with this situation.
Well, why is it that we go to 2006? What was happening that year with Washington spending that people use as an example, like yourself?
Well, that's when Democrats took over, and frankly, we've seen the rapid increase in spending in 2007, 2008, and then even more so in 9 and 10 with the Obama administration and the Democrat Congress. So we say a lot of families, a lot of small business owners have had to go to a previous year's spending level, had to cut spending. Why in the heck can't the federal government, the biggest spending entity in the world, why in the world can't we reduce levels and go back to a previous year's levels and hold those and begin to turn the thing in the right direction?
Well, but you know this will not get you. I think the phrase you use it won't get you over the finish line.
Right. That's why.
But I guess it's a start, if nothing else.
It's a great first step. But we have to look at entitlements. Paul Ryan has got a plan that I think makes a lot of sense, which would save Social Security, save Medicare, and also save on costs going forward. We have to be willing, as conservatives, we're always reluctant to go here, but we even have to be willing to look at national defense and make sure our nation's secure, make sure our men and women in uniform have what they need, but looking for inefficiencies that may exist at the Pentagon and in our national defense budget. Everything has to be on the table because the situation is just that serious.
Jim Jordan, thank you for your time. Republican out of Ohio. We will talk again. In the meantime, here's John Boehner.